had a spreadsheet when I was dating. If you're somebody who is constantly running into boundaries issues, chances are it's not a boundary issue, it's a standard issue. So when everyone that you meet in this world is a mirror for you, don't be surprised when you see something that you don't like.
You're listening to the Soul Whispers podcast. This is your guide to break out of your fears, follow the path that lights you up, and come home to yourself. I'm your host, certified life coach and soul whisperer, Jen Sway. Before we begin, know that wherever you are in your journey, you can trust yourself. You're being divinely guided, and your life is meaningful. Now, let's start the show.
Hello friends, and welcome back to the Soul Whispers podcast. I'm Jen Sway, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm a soul whisperer guiding people back into alignment with their true self after a spiritual awakening. So if you need help answering those deep questions of who are you, what is your purpose, and all those things, I got you. So today we're talking all about relationships and dating, and truth be told, this is the second time that I've recorded this episode. And it's funny because I just haven't had to refilm many episodes ever. There's been episodes where I've recorded and just didn't like, so I didn't post. But actually needing to re-record something is not something I typically do. Part of it because I feel like perfectionism will just make you do that a lot. If you don't get over that, I feel like I've gotten over that hump. And so I don't want to just create to create. There are just some things that didn't fully align in that last iteration that hopefully this iteration, it feels nice and smooth. And we also have Miss Cleo with us, not to be confused with the Miss Cleo psychic scammer person, because I actually didn't know that that was a thing until quite recently. She's named after Cleopatra, but that would be funny if she was actually known as Miss Cleo. But anywho, let's get into the episode. I have 3 things really that I want to outline and just highlight throughout this whole episode, and then I'm going to do a little bit of tarot at the end to help kind of guide you in seeing what other messages you might need to hear right now. Trust me when I say I get how hard dating is. I have been single at multiple points in my life. I've been in long-term relationships as well, and there's just no such thing as an easy life, any relationship that goes by with just ease, rainbow, sunshine, daisies. Even me having had experience a soulmate relationship connection, even that did not end up panning out forever. And I think before we even get into all the things dating related, I think it's really important to also just set the tone of the paradigm that I'm coming from, which is that I don't believe that marriage is the end all be all for relationships. I don't think that where we are today as a society, marriage needs to be this big thing that everyone strives for. I don't think that it's a symbol or indicator of how great a relationship is. I don't think how long you're with somebody is an indicator of how successful a relationship is. You are so unique as an individual, and people have different blueprints of why they are the way that they are, why they came here onto this earth, why they've incarnated here at this time. And if being in a long-term monogamous relationship is not for you, that's okay. That being said, the large majority of people still want to experience a relationship, a monogamous relationship or a long-term relationship. Some people want to get married, have families, and they want to do that in a dynamic in which it's just between 2 people for as long as possible. And that is also totally okay. To me, one of the paradigms that I operate in within relationships is that relationships are a dojo in which you can grow and learn more about yourself with. I find that people are mirrors for you, and we're going to talk deeper into that. But this paradigm has allowed me to really not take things as personally when it comes to dating, when things don't work out. It's allowed me to let go and surrender to whatever my intuition is guiding me towards, or whatever I think is best for myself. It's also allowed me to really apply myself into a relationship, to really give it my all before calling a quits on it, because I also don't think that a relationship, it doesn't work out if it's not aligned. It means that either of you had to quit. It doesn't mean that either of you are bad people. It really is just one of those things where relationships can be challenging, that there's so many different factors that feel like it has to match up for something to work out, for the chemistry to be there, the compatibility to be there, and the longevity for it to be there. So in that journey, there's no reason to have to make it harder than it actually is. And if we can reframe the giving up and taking it as a personal failure on our part, or blaming it on somebody else, and we can take it as something that is just natural and normal, and a normal part of the human experience, I think we'd all be much better off. So originally I actually had that point as point number 3 of don't take anything personally, but because we're talking about it, let's just talk about it right now. don't take things personally when it comes to dating. I have a whole episode way back when that talks about how to not take things personally, but the reason why this is so important is because when it comes to dating, you don't need to use it against yourself, to shame yourself even more, to make yourself feel more inadequate, to put more pressure on yourself when the world already does that to you. I remember coaching somebody who was feeling really attached to a past lover because they felt like they weren't good enough for them. The other person had ended things with them, and yet they were still attached even months later, and they were feeling a certain way about that. I think I can relate to that. I've had that experience where I really wanted to be with somebody, but they weren't ready for a relationship, and I took that really personally, even though I knew I, quote, shouldn't have. There's no need to have to tell yourself like you shouldn't feel a certain way that you're feeling, or that you should be feeling something that you think you should be feeling. All of those shoulds kind of goes back to episode 103 of why shoulds are so toxic, but it also denies your human experience. It denies your authentic experience in the current reality that you are in. And it makes it more challenging to actually get to the root of what you're actually feeling, how you're currently experiencing life, and then being able to move on, navigate from that. I've done this with people when I feel like I should be feeling something that I don't feel because they're good on paper, or telling myself that I shouldn't be feeling sad or bummed out or whatever because I have all these perspectives, right? And I believe in these perspectives, and therefore I shouldn't have to be feeling all of this attachment and this grief or whatever from losing somebody that ultimately didn't work out with. I've also had this with past relationships where I feel like I should be grieving it more than I actually did. Overall, whenever we're trying to deny our own feelings or change our feelings that are authentically coming up for us, that is when problems occur. That's where suppression occurs. That's where we start to feel sick. That's where we literally start to get like headaches, or we overthink, or we try to distract ourselves with everything else in life instead of letting ourselves be a human being, have compassion for ourselves, and let that experience deepen our connection with ourselves. In the case of this person that I was coaching, it was really important to see that at the root of feeling like this grief, feeling this attachment, was this belief that they weren't good enough, that they could have done something differently, that if they were different, then maybe they would want to be with them. And it was also one of those situations that I think a lot of us have heard about, where the person didn't want to be in a relationship with them, citing that they just didn't want a relationship. But then the next person they met, they were in a relationship with. And that can be a really painful experience that needs to be validated, that needs to be seen, felt, and heard and experienced. And also notice where the story behind those feelings might not be valid. This goes to say, like, all your feelings are valid, but your stories might not be. You can feel really angry and resentful and bitter about somebody, but that doesn't mean that they're an asshole. Like, if they told you straight up that they didn't want a relationship with you and you took that personally, or you took that as a personal challenge to prove to them how good of a person you are, or how great of a partner you would be, or you were just trying to be the cool girl or the chill guy and just wait it out and see if their mind changes, and then you get hurt at the end, notice how your feelings are valid in those situations, but the storyline is not that they're actually an asshole, or that they lied to you, or that they were manipulating you. It's that you weren't listening to what they said, and you decided to go down a different course in the hopes of somebody else changing. So it's more so about self-trust, as well as trusting what other people tell you so that you can do what's best for you, to have strong boundaries for yourself. Even if it were true that you weren't good enough for somebody else, that's okay, because that also probably means that they're not good enough for you. Because at the foundation of when you're dating somebody, there needs to be mutual interest, mutual attraction, and liking each other to actually want the relationship to work out. There has to be a feeling of choice. And if one person's choosing you, but you're not choosing them, or vice versa, then fundamentally that is a relationship that is not, quote, good enough. This takes a lot of emotional maturity, as well as a lot of time, practice, and healing to get to a place where you can genuinely see everybody as a mirror for you. I'm still working on this. I don't think I'll ever be done doing the work on this. And I'm always constantly finding places where I'm judging other people about their certain behaviors, or I feel like, oh, they're not doing enough of this thing or that thing. Because at this point in my journey, I've been able to train myself to see every judgment I have to somebody else as to, why is it triggering me in some way? Why is it bringing up some type of negative experience in me? Where is it that I do a similar thing? And then that is always very telling. So when everyone that you meet in this world is a mirror for you, don't be surprised when you see something that you don't like. And it's really important to choose to be brave in these situations, to actually face these things in the mirror. You don't want to shy away from these things, and you actually want to take a look in the mirror so that you can actually see what's going on, right? It's like if there was spinach in your teeth and you're taking photos, you want somebody to tell you that you have spinach in your teeth so you can take it out. It's the same thing here. You want to look at the points of yourself that makes you really critical, defensive, that makes your ego flare up. You want to see the parts of yourself where you don't feel good enough, where you feel the need to people please, or you feel compelled to break your own boundaries, break your own standards so that you can not lose somebody else, right? You get to see where all your fears and your doubts lie, as well as any past traumas and past hurts that are coming into the surface, any past attachments that you have not let go of. And you get to use these experiences, not like use the other person for your own personal gain as like an experiment in your own personal development, but when you find somebody that you connect with and these things start to come up, you actually get to see all these things so clearly within yourself that now you get an opportunity to heal through them and actually practice the maturity and the spiritual growth that you've experienced by being able to communicate with the other person. So if somebody ghosts you, you don't have to take it personally, right? You get to say like, hey, I noticed that you haven't been responsive to me. Just wanted to check in to see if that means what I think it means, right? Or you don't have to go somebody else. You can tell them, hey, I enjoy the time that we spent together. It was nice meeting you. I just don't feel a vibe, but I hope you find what you're looking for, right? You don't have to actually go about being this person who is defensive and reactive and, hurt by what other people do and say. You get to take emotional responsibility for yourself. And in doing so, you also have the opportunity now to let other people match you in that energy. Like Carl Jung said, keep your shadows in front of you because they can only take you down from behind. Now, if you are aware of the shadows that you're experiencing, whether that's insecure attachment styles or you have a past relationship that's really sticky, that's, you can't let go of, that you haven't gone over yet, even if it's been months and years and all these things, if you know that you struggle with people pleasing and invalidating your own self, your experiences, that you put everyone else's needs first before your own, and you're seeing that come out in not the greatest ways, where that can be almost borderline manipulative because you're so afraid to have needs that you just want to be liked and you just want somebody to like you back. These are the things that I would suggest getting some support in, specifically hypnotherapy. With my hypnotherapy clients, I always start off with a one-on-one coaching session that is a deep dive into the actual challenge itself. So let's say you feel like you're blocked from love, and the reason why you're blocked is because you tend to people please, you tend to tone yourself down, you're not really being yourself on dates. Maybe you have anxious attachment styles and you want to know why that's coming up for you. Maybe you're afraid of commitment, or maybe you're afraid of love. You're afraid to be seen. You don't want to be so vulnerable with somebody. Or if you're like me, maybe you have challenges with receiving, that when you receive love, when somebody pays for you, when somebody does something nice for you, you start to feel a little guilty or a little anxious because that makes you feel pressure to have to do something back, even though you want to be able to just receive with gratitude and with grace. Instead, it becomes an experience in which you're maybe keeping score, you're feeling a little anxious and guilty. And maybe it's also really difficult for you to communicate those things. I've seen so many different variations of this in which shame is a factor in not being able to actually show up as your true self. It keeps you from being able to speak your needs. It keeps you from being able to connect properly because you don't want to bring the vibe down, right? If you're going through something negative. And so it's just not allowing you to create authentic connections. And this is where hypnotherapy really shines in being able to take you back to the root causes of why those things are the way it is. Because a feeling that's buried alive never dies. And in hypnotherapy, this is where we actually get to go back to the root causes so that you can feel, process, and let go of those emotions, as well as the stories that were created because of them. When you're able to do that, it's like clearing out your closet. Now you have space to put in all the new stuff that you actually like, that you're actually going to wear. So the last couple pieces of the hypnotherapy session, we're able to reframe those beliefs, let them all go, and then bring in custom pieces that are the thoughts and the beliefs, the feelings that you genuinely want to feel, that you actually believe in, so that when you come out of hypnosis and as you start to integrate those beliefs into your daily life, you're able to show up and see your reality be reflected back to you with those new positive beliefs and your own confidence that shows through in all of it. If you want to know more about hypnotherapy and how you can get started, you can book a consultation in the link down in the description box, or you can go to my site at jencui.com. That's JENCUI.com/RTT. And the best part of all of this is that you're never going to be left hanging, and everything always compounds on top of this healing. So the investment that you make into hypnotherapy, you'll be able to get a personalized hypnosis audio that you'll be able to listen to for 21 days following the hypnosis so that you can really integrate those beliefs. And you'll also be able to have that hypnosis audio for you for whenever you need a boost throughout the rest of your life. All the work that you've been able to do in those healing sessions, you're also going to be able to build on top of. So whenever you get coached by me, by somebody else, whenever you do any more healing, you've already peeled back several layers through hypnotherapy, through the deep coaching work that we've done. So you can even get deeper into more root causes that maybe have been suppressed. Because the truth is, if you have a belief or a pattern or a habit that has been created over decades and decades of practicing it, decades and decades of doing the same thing, it probably won't be fully healed in a single session. But the good news is there's still a ton of healing that can be done in a single session. And when you continuously show up for your healing, that's when you're able to start to live the rest of your life with this new version of yourself. So if you're interested in it, like I said, you can go down to the link in the description box and book a consultation with me. Now, the first thing that I wanted to bring up in this episode when it comes to dating and how you can have a better relationship with dating itself, have a better experience dating, and be able to be successful in dating and finding these connections is to be yourself, to truly get to know yourself and feel safe enough to express those things. I've said this so many times, but confidence does not come from outside of you. It comes from within you. It comes from feeling safe enough in yourself to express who it is that you are. So assuming that you've already listened to podcast number 101 and you have been able to identify your virtues, your values, your vision, assuming that you've done the work of listening to the other episodes that came after, especially 102 and 103, that was all about de-shaming yourself and deconditioning your shoulds, this will be a lot easier for you. Because now you can actually ask yourself really good questions on dating. One of the things that I say a lot is that people are underthinking. And this is so funny because we live in a culture in which everyone's always overthinking, and we always tell ourselves, oh, we're overthinkers, right? We overanalyze everything. And this might not be false. However, I think one of the problems is that we are not just, quote, overthinking, we are ruminating. We're ruminating over things, we are questioning things, we are reliving things, but we're not necessarily doing critical thinking in which we are using our brains as tools to problem solve or to create a plan. We are using our brains against ourselves as weapons. Because being able to think about your situation and actually get to the heart of what is the problem, that is going to be extremely valuable for you. If you can clearly identify and express what the problem is, that's going to give you a big head start and save you so many hours of arguing with yourself, arguing with others, and trying to get the words out when you get support, because you have been able to see, okay, this is actually what the heart of the problem is. It's not that dating apps suck or dating culture sucks and like hookup culture is just so rampant. It's not that LA sucks and it's so hard to meet people. It's not that you're such a good person and like nobody can see your value. You actually get to see the heart of the challenge, which might be that you're jaded in dating, that you need a break, that you're burnt out from dating, or that you haven't actually been true to yourself in looking for what is it that you genuinely want, and you're super caught up in what it looks like. There's a quote that I've seen, I think it was maybe from the Gottmans, that said that secure people look for connections and insecure people look for relationships. And that completely changed my view on dating, because I find this to be so true. I find this to be also so liberating. When people are looking for relationships, it feels so serious. It feels so like dead set. It could be on one end feeling like you're a means to an end, and then like, you know, if you two are aligned in the end goal, then that means you should just be together, which is not true. That does not necessarily mean that you're compatible. That does not necessarily mean that you even like each other. And then on the other end, it can feel very insecurely attached, right? Because you're just looking for somebody because you want the end result, but you're not really prepared to do the work and be wanting a relationship to fill a certain void, to boost your self-esteem in some way, because now you have a partner, to give yourself a sense of purpose in some way, to give yourself another sense of security that might not be true, right? And then you can be so attached to the other person person that you forget yourself, you lose your own needs, and you lose your own boundaries. However, when you take dating from this approach of really just looking for genuine connection, it allows you to take off the pressure and really get to focus in on who are you, what do you like, and what does the other person like? Who are they? Do you guys actually connect? What do you guys connect over? Do you like the version of you that's coming out when you're around them? Do they like the version of themselves when they meet you? And this does not mean that you cannot want a relationship. You can absolutely, and I would recommend knowing what your intention for dating is. If you're looking for something long-term, if you are looking for something short-term, if you're looking for something just casual, if you're looking for a marriage and family and all those things, these things are really important to know and see how compatible you are with somebody, but it does not mean, hey, you are now attached to this result. There is a very specific energy in which you can tell if somebody is attached to the result more than they actually are in the process with you. It's going to feel like somebody who is desperately just trying to get any job that they can get because they need a job, versus somebody who genuinely really is interested in you and is putting a lot of effort in because they want to be with you. I've experienced this and it's so confusing, where you wonder if like somebody is love bombing you because they just want to like be in a relationship with you, if they're like a covert narcissist or something and they're just trying to like get you to like them, versus somebody who is genuinely so like compelled by you that they just feel the like this pull to do all these nice things for you, to take you out, to be kind to you, to, prioritize you right from the get-go. And like the way that men and women work in dating is so different. And I think for people who are non-binary, like it really depends on where your energy is at and where you're leaning. But all I can attest to is my personal experience as a predominantly straight woman, and then me also coaching people who are predominantly straight. Men tend to know quite quickly if they want to be with you or not. And this does not mean that they just know for a fact that they want to marry you right away, but they know that they want to commit to you. Versus women take a lot more time. Some women will know when they know, and you definitely hear those stories. But I think more often than not, because biologically we're wired in a way in which for men, they want to just like spread their seed. And then women, on the other hand, have a lot more risk when it comes to mating with a partner. Women are less of a creature that's just like, yes, let's just commit right away. They need to really see consistency, reliability, and groundedness throughout the process. That is being in the feminine, looking to receive from the masculine. The masculine, because they see this feminine, right, which is like God or goddess in herself, when they find this person who is so compelling to them, it brings them into their masculine energy, in which now suddenly they want to provide, they want to protect, they want to procreate with them, right? Like those are the things that biologically they are driven to do. And that is like what is incited with them when they meet a woman who is in their feminine energy, which can look different things. It's not like just being soft and like, domestic and whatever. For me, I have a lot of masculine energy, but I also am very feminine, right? And the way that my femininity shows up does not show up as like not being opinionated. It actually is me being very free, and me being very free, being myself, talking about tarot, sharing all my opinions and all these things. That tends to be very attractive to people who then are now in their masculine of like, ooh, I see all this value, right? I see where I'm a very good guide. I'm very nurturing and very loving towards my friends and towards my partner, right? I'm somebody who is expressive. I'm somebody who is a very deep thinker. And it's those qualities that is a match for the people who are attracted to me specifically, where they like those things, right? Even men who want like a traditional woman who is going to be like a housewife or whatever. It's kind of like everyone's entitled to their preferences, but what's going to be similar across the board is that each person in this relationship is going to be compelled into the energy that is natural for them to be in. Like for me, I notice that when I'm in a balanced relationship, the part of me that's incited is not the part of me that's like, go, go, go. I need to be super productive all the time. I need to go make as much money as possible. I need to like, just like work all the time. The part of me that's incited is this feeling of safety, of like where I can be much more creative. I can be more playful. I want to have more fun. I see a very nurturing side of myself come out. I tend to trust in life more. I tend to trust in myself more because I have this like safe, stable energy that's in my life. And then I also have this gift of expanding the good in other people's lives. And so I have seen this a lot, that when people date me, they tend to start to get like promotions, or they start to make money, or they start to get all these opportunities. They start to get all this clarity. They start to create like really cool connections with people that they wanted to connect with. Like, I tend to expand the good that exists in somebody's life, or help push them into that good energy. And I think that is also part of the result of being in the feminine, where you just get to like shine your light, and that inherently makes other people's light shine more. So this all being said, this ties into polarity in dating, right? What's important here of knowing yourself and kind of where you stand in your energy. And you can just use the words like yin and yang if masculine and feminine doesn't resonate with you, or it feels like a little too binary to you. What you're looking for here is complementary energy, in which neither party is like the dominating force across the board, and neither party is like so indecisive that nobody can actually make a decision. And it's just like, oh, well, what do you want? What do you want? You can see that as like a power dynamic issue. When it comes to the early phases of dating, assuming that you both know what it is that you want and it makes sense to both of you, you're both on board with that, whether you just want to be casual, whether you want to just explore something short term and you're open to seeing it become long term, or if you both are like committed to wanting to go all in on each other and you just want to like date and like start off that relationship, you'll be able to see where you're leaning in that masculine and feminine polarity. And you'll be able to notice that if you feel like you're doing a lot and the other person isn't able to receive it, or they're trying to do a lot back to you, it's like two positive ends of a magnet coming together. You're going to feel that repulsion, right? I don't think a woman needs to always be in her feminine energy and a man always needs to be in his masculine energy, because we both at the end of the day have both energies, and we need to find that balance within ourselves first before we're able to see that within other people and understand that in a relationship, or that when you're dating for intentionally to be in a relationship, it's not about just giving or just receiving. It's about having a reciprocal relationship. And I think part of the issue of dating nowadays, and especially with social media and even the traditional ways, I think just overall a problem in this world is that we are so focused in transactional relationships. We're so focused on, what are you going to give? What am I going to give? And like, is that enough for both of us? It's like, if I give you this, then you will give me this, versus being able to see this as an energy exchange where you're really working as partners, where you want to collaborate. And it's not just somebody that is like a companion to you, because just having a companion through life, like if that is your goal, if both of you are like independent people, you just want to come together to like have fun in life, kind of more like based in friendship, then that's awesome for you, right? Then you know that. And also, I think there's a lot of people who want partnerships in which they can collaborate, come together to create something new that they couldn't even like without each other, right? So whether that is a family, whether that's a business, whether that is, just being able to like explore the world together, whatever that common goal is, that requires a lot more partnership energy rather than just companionship energy. And in a partnership, you have to be able to take into account what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and find something that complements those things. I have had the soulmate relationship in which I felt like we were really great companions through life, but as far as partnership goes, like we weren't really able to build as much as I would probably want to build. And now I'm in a partnership in which it's less about just like the companionship and more about the partnership energy of where we want to build. And I'm still kind of sussing out like, oh, these are just like two different energies. And I'm kind of like in that right now, so I don't really want to talk too much about it. But that being said, it has been a really interesting journey for me to see my brain and witness like all the thoughts that I have when I see somebody like be a very committed partner, and I'm like, oh, it's very early on still. This was something that I had to discern for myself, of the genuine effort versus the trying energy. The trying energy being that like, please just like me, let me do all these things for you. But then when we get too close, it's like, ooh, actually like I realized that I can't keep up the pace that I was going at. I can't keep doing all these things because I was really just trying to get closer to you. I was trying to like get the ball rolling here, but now I actually need to step back. It's kind of like if a kid wanted to get close to somebody else, and they just gave them all their snacks and they let them play with all their toys, and then they spend more time together, they're closer, now they're friends, but then they realize, oh, I actually don't want to share all my snacks with you, and I actually don't want you to play with those toys. And the other person's like, what do you mean, you've always let me do this? That's what I mean when I say like the trying energy. Like, you don't want to be trying in dating. You don't want to be trying to be somebody that you're not. You don't want to try to sound interesting. You don't want to try to pretend like you're interested in visiting a certain country if you've never thought about that. You don't want to try to be interested in, like, I don't know, biotech and AI if you're not genuinely interested in those things. You don't want to pretend to be anything that you're not. And you also don't want to tone down who it is that you are. You don't want to tone down, like for me, that I'm a tarot reader, that I love human design, that I'm deeply spiritual, that I love sound baths, that, like, you know, I also love like going to cafes, that I don't drink, that I don't smoke, that I'm not about like the drug life, but I will also like occasionally have cannabis, or I had like a really crazy shroom trip that like really helped me get perspective in life. I have a podcast in which I talk so candidly on the internet about everything. I have a cat, you know, I'm like vegan. Like, there's so many things in which for me, like, I just like will not hide, and I will actually put it at the forefront because it is so important to me that somebody is accepting of those things and even aligned with me in certain aspects of that. So then the genuine effort comes from genuinely being curious about somebody, genuinely liking somebody and being interested in them, genuinely finding alignment because you have similar hobbies or similar interests, similar values, similar lifestyles. Like when I meet somebody who's also vegan, I'm like, amazing. Like, we obviously have that in common, right? We obviously can go now explore good vegan restaurants together, or, you know, cook together and all these things. And so the genuine effort comes in with like, oh, somebody was really thoughtful and made a reservation at a vegan restaurant. And even when I dated non-vegans, it was the same thing. Like, they put in the effort to think about, oh, you know, what do I like? Or, you know, where's somewhere that they're curious of trying out that has vegan options? Or, you know, they know that I'm spiritual. And so even if they want to give me gifts, right, it's like things like crystals instead of maybe like, I don't know, a box of chocolates. The things that you're afraid that will put off somebody is going to be the thing that's actually going to bring someone closer to you. And even if you are somebody who feels like you're judgy, or that you have a lot of trauma still, or that, you know, you're not perfect, you're not where you want to be, like you're financially not where you want to be, or you know, you have, like with myself, like you know, challenging family dynamics. Those are the things that like I don't share necessarily like right off the bat, but like within like the first 3 dates, maybe, like as I see that I'm connecting to somebody, I will share those things. I will share that I have a challenging relationship with my mom, or I will share my like judgments and critiques about certain things of like the way that the world works, or the way that people think, or whatever. And to me, those are all coming from a place of wanting to share my opinions, share my thought processes. And the thing to look for here is not that somebody has the same exact judgments of you, but to be able to see that somebody can be tolerant of different viewpoints. And also, if it does create a debate or discussion, that you guys have the ability to have positive, healthy intellectual debate and conversation. Same thing with conflict. Like, if conflict were to arise because you feel a certain way because somebody said something that was hurtful to you, are you able to communicate your feelings effectively? Are they able to take responsibility and accountability for their part of it? Or do they make it your problem? Do they make it that you're too sensitive, or, you know, that, you know, you took it the wrong way, or that's not what they meant, and they get really defensive, right? Those things are really important for them to come up from the shadows so that you can see for yourself, is that something you want to deal with? Do you have the capacity to handle those things? Are you skilled at navigating those conversations and conflicts within yourself? And from there, being able to see further compatibility. Okay, now that we covered being yourself, and I hope that you go and be as woo-woo and spiritual as you can be on these dates, because I know for myself, I love sharing my spirituality with people. I love telling people about that. And if they don't meet me where I'm at, I'm like, cool, bye. But luckily for me, I've been able to find people who are genuinely very interested as well in things like human design, or want to learn more about astrology and do the deep work with me. So that's always really fun to meet too. And that's what I hope for you, whatever those exciting things for you that make you just like light up in this world. I hope you're able to find somebody who can meet you and match your freak, as the song goes, because I keep seeing that online where people are like, can you match my freak? Or like, you know, and it's like, yeah, show your freak, because how is someone going to match your freak if you're not showing your freak and like letting that freak fly high, as they would say. Okay, so this comes into number 2, and this would be the last thing that I talk about. So this is technically number 3 because we already talked about not taking things personally. But the last thing that I will say on dating that we will go over is have high standards. Now, having high standards does not mean having high expectations. There's a difference between having standards and expectations. Having standards and expectations are 2 different things. Expectations are typically not grounded in yourself and you doing deep reflection. Expectations are typically things that are like rules that other people have to follow in order for you to feel a certain way about yourself, right? Like they need to pay for dinner, otherwise I'm going to feel like they're not very interested in me. Versus the standard can be generosity or knowing that you are a priority, that you are special. And because of that, somebody will show you that through maybe paying for dinner, right? Let the record show, I fully believe that a man should pay for dinner if they go out with a woman, like 100%, especially on the first date, probably the first couple dates, if not for the entire duration of the relationship. That's just my thing because I enjoy feeling taken care of, and I have no problem like paying for dinner here and there, but it definitely should not be the first one. And just like on principle for me, dinner feels very intimate. I would much rather have my partner do that, and like I would be happy with like paying for a brunch or something like that. I'm also somebody who likes to cook and make food for others, and I think I'm a pretty good cook. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on my dishes, and so therefore I also like to show love and reciprocate in those ways to make someone feel taken care of. But at the end of the day here, what you can see is that there is a standard of being taken care of, right? Being shown that you are somebody who somebody wants to take care of, that you want to be prioritized. And in Friends, there's a really great quote with Monica and Chandler, I believe. I have never watched Friends like that. Like I've only seen a few episodes, so I forget who Monica is with, but her partner, and they have a conversation where Monica's like, I feel high maintenance. And then the guy is like, I love maintaining you. Like there's no such thing as high maintenance when somebody loves to maintain you. Think about guys with their expensive cars. They love to take care of their cars. And if you're something that is precious to them, that they want to cherish you, feel grateful for you, they love you, of course they're going to want to maintain you as well. And for women, they love so deeply and so freely. Of course, they're going to want to also take care of you in a way, right? They're going to want to pull out that emotional depth and connect with you in such a beautiful way that probably men can't, or not as easily, whether it's conditioning or whether it's themselves, but maybe they won't be able to feel as much from another man or from just a girlfriend. And so, through those partnerships, that's where you're able to see all of this beautiful like exchange in a reciprocal relationship happen. So understand that when it comes to having high standards for yourself, you want to have your standards that feel like the ceiling right now be your floor. When you are able to do that, that is how you ensure that with every relationship, with every year that you grow, with every year you invest in yourself and you become a much more, quote, valuable human. And I don't like saying that because I think everyone has inherent value, and your inherent value comes from being like so aligned in yourself and your virtues, you knowing what capital you have, whether that's spiritual capital of being very wise and, thinking deeply about these subjects, knowing your purpose, or it's financial capital, or maybe it's people capital, maybe you're a really great networker and all these things. Being able to know yourself to that depth of what your inherent value of like being lovable and worthy as is, and then being able to create value in this world for other people through your spiritual capital, your financial capital, through your human capital, whatever it may be, then you're able to really know what you bring to the table, so to speak, so that it's not about like, hey, can you sit with me and can I sit with you? It's, here are my cards on the table. Let me see your cards and let's see how we can collaborate together. How you'll know you're out of alignment in this is if you have really high standards for others, but you don't have high standards for yourself, right? If your standard for other people is like they have to look a certain way, they need to be taking care of their bodies, they need to be financially doing well and be stable, they need to be really spiritual and like know themselves, know their purpose, they need to be like, XYZ, their morning routine, they need to be traveling and blah, 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 blah. And then you're over here not investing in yourself, not taking care of your body, complaining all the time, having really like negative, toxic, language about yourself. You're talking down on yourself, you're talking down on others, you're gossiping all the time, you're super caught up on social media and like all this stuff, you're not spending time in your purpose and like you're not building towards something, then that's completely out of alignment, right? Like you need to be feeling like you're doing your best to be in alignment with where you're at. And then that way you can also see that in other people when they're genuinely putting an effort into themselves and into the relationship rather than faking it, whether it's with themselves and like deluding themselves or deluding you, trying to, put one over you. And this is just a side note for people who are afraid that they're going to get caught up in a relationship with a narcissist or somebody who's manipulative. I've always said that if you have high standards and if you know yourself well, if you trust yourself, then you don't have to be afraid of dating a narcissist, because even if you were to not see the red flags or ignore the red flags of somebody who is being narcissistic, the moment that they show their true colors, the moment that they start to degrade you or, pull away or try to manipulate you or whatever, and you feel a certain way, you'll notice those feelings and you'll trust yourself enough to walk away, right? You'll be able to leave those situations. Because narcissism is really a condition of deeply rooted shame in which somebody cannot meet their own shame, they cannot like let those things out, right? It's not that all narcissists are psychopaths. There's a correlation, right? But not all narcissists are psychopaths. Some of them are literally just like deeply rooted in their own shame that they can't see through their own BS. And so when you see through it, you need to be able to trust yourself to leave, right? And that comes from having the high standards, like I said, understanding the difference between expectations and standards, being able to communicate and have effective conflict resolution skills. All of these things that already is challenging to do on a basis with other human beings to communicate and not be misunderstood, right? Like when you're able to do that work in a relationship and you see that when in the early dating phases, you can just leave whatever relationship is not in alignment for you that feels like it takes way more effort than it's actually worth. When we talk about virtues, values, and visions, the virtue that I feel like really runs this is integrity. And integrity requires discernment, because if you're to be in integrity with yourself, with what your standards are, with what it is that you say you want, you're going to be able to be discerning of others without making that mean that they're a bad person, that you're a bad person, or that they wasted your time or you're wasting your time, right? You're not taking it personally. You're just able to see the facts for as they are and make decisions based off those things, right? You're able to discern your feelings, and you're also able to detach from, okay, like just because I feel this way does not necessarily mean that this is actually right for me, right? Or just because this looks right for me does not mean that I actually feel a way that I don't feel. When you're able to see it from that lens, then you're able to operate from truth. There's no guilt in it. There's just integrity. Your first line of defense when it comes to dating and making sure that you are engaging in healthy relationships, that you're setting yourself up for success, is to have high standards. Because what often people think about when they think about dating is to have boundaries. It's actually having high standards. If you're somebody who is constantly running into boundaries issues, chances are it's not a boundary issue, it's a standard issue, whether it's for your own life or for the way that somebody else treats you. If you're constantly needing to set a boundary of like, I don't have this much time to talk, or hey, you can't talk to me like that, then chances are you are not respecting yourself, where you're still engaging in relationships in which other people are saying these things to you, you're subjecting yourself to it. You have not been able to develop the emotional independence from that situation in which you don't feel the need to be subjugated to those things. And the example that comes up for me oftentimes is like the relationship with me and my mom. And I will say this for myself, it's not emotionally, but financially, I don't feel independent enough in which I can't have like a relationship with my mom just in case I need her, right? Because if I need financial support, or if like I'm in a pinch, having that lifeline, having that like safety net feels really important to me. And so I don't want to like cut that relationship off. Also, family dynamic wise, I don't want to have to deal with a family dynamic in which my mom and I are really estranged and not talking to each other, but then I'm talking to everybody else in my family, right? So then to me, like both from an emotional level, financial level, physical, like safety level, there's an element there in which I don't feel like, okay, I like can cut off this relationship. And so therefore boundaries come into play in order to create some level of protection, because there's no like, oh, let me just get a different mom. And in the same vein, I also can't change who I am as a person, what I like and what I want to do with my life. So when we butt heads, there just needs to be boundaries in place. But when it comes to dating, you get to choose these people. So you get to choose the way they show up for you and whether or not that's good enough for you. And you also get to choose how you show up with them and whether or not you are abiding by your own standards for how you want to live your life. If you're seeing, like me, for example, I've done this so many times where I get so caught up in a new connection. I'm somebody who goes like really deep, really fast. I can kind of neglect my work and neglect like other things in my life in order to just like spend time and connect or like deepen that connection to try to figure out if it's like the right one. And I have had to learn to slow that down, to put my overthinking to the side so that I can get what I want to get done, so that I can keep moving the needle forward and my purpose, so that I can keep showing up for myself, my health, my friendships, my relationships with other people. And in doing so, needing to set a precedent as well for how I treat myself, where my boundaries are at. And then that naturally translates to also the other person being able to see them respect those boundaries as well. And the last thing I will say about standards is that you do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be fully healed. Neither does the other person. They do not have to be perfect or fully healed. But what you do need is to be willing to grow. You both need to be healing independently. And you have to be clear on what is your own personal responsibilities to meet your needs and where are you willing, able, and wanting. That last part is really important, that you genuinely want to help meet each other's needs. Because when it comes to supporting each other's needs, it's really about knowing what are those strengths and those weaknesses at, and knowing what the trade-off is, because there's always going to be pros and cons to both. And this is as much as illogical as it is an emotional decision. Because if you think about somebody who hasn't invested in their personal healing yet, and you're somebody who has invested in yourself, who is further along in your healing journey, it will require a lot more emotional labor on your part in order to do that work of communicating with each other and being able to support them in their healing journey and quote, like help them heal in some way. Not that you're responsible for it, but just supporting them through that. And when you go through conflict, inevitably, like being able to do that heavy lifting of being the emotionally intelligent one who's communicating through the conflict. And that needs to be something that you have to see if you're willing to do or not. Similar thing if you're wanting to be with somebody who hasn't created the financial stability that they want in themselves yet, and if maybe they don't want to create that with themselves, maybe they're looking to you to help support them, maybe they're more traditional and they want you to be a provider, like a sole provider for a family that you guys want to have together or whatnot, like that's something that you also have to take into consideration of the financial support that they're going to need. And this is also one that I feel like people don't think about, but somebody who hasn't found their purpose yet, somebody who genuinely does not like their job, or has no idea what it is that they want to do with their life, that they don't feel connected to a sense of purpose, is also going to come with its own set of challenges. Because if you're not aware of it, they're going to put a lot of energy into you, maybe put you on a pedestal, want to spend a lot of time with you to kind of distract themselves from that. And they also might go through periods where they're languishing and they're feeling lost in life, and you're also going to need to support them in that. Inevitably, I feel like people are here, and especially in this age of Aquarius where everyone's kind of waking up to the fact that we need to evolve as a society in our consciousness. We need to be much more compassionate and loving towards each other. We want to do work that is fulfilling for us. We're not just all about the money anymore. We're not just all about achievement anymore. We're not just all about having a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or kids or whatever. We're about the fulfillment in life and feeling holistically well. I think as we all start to grow and evolve into this way and we start to wake up to those things, this is also one of those things that's going to be challenging with being with somebody, because you're also going to want to be there with them or feel like pressure to be with them as they figure out their own pathway, right? And especially, again, if you're somebody who has a very clear sense of purpose, if you love them and you want to be there with them through that process to help them figure out that next chapter, then that's awesome. But also, you shouldn't feel obligated to be with somebody to help them through those things. This is why it can be so complex and so challenging for all of us to be in this world and navigate dating and relationships. It's not that love is the hard part, it's that people are the hard part. Knowing ourselves, knowing somebody else, going through the changes and evolutions of ourselves, those are the challenges that come up in these times. And also, as long as love and this connection is worth it to you, then you'll be able to find your match. So actually, I do have one last thing that I do want to say, and this will definitely be the last thing that I say for this episode, and that is the question of having a rubric of some sort, right? Having your list of non-negotiables or what do you want in a partner. And I think while it's important to know what your non-negotiables are, at the end of the day, we all have really similar ones, things like respect and trust, having a level of attraction, being able to have someone who's aligned in our ambitions and life goals and those types of things. But when it comes to having like your checklist of like how tall they are, what nationality they are, like, like what languages do they speak, where do they go to school, all these different things, having this checklist, what I will tell you is this, and this is a little tea time story. I had a spreadsheet when I was dating back in 2019 when I went on like 50 plus first dates. I was so committed to meeting my match. So I had this spreadsheet that was based off of one of my close friends whose mom decided who to date based off of a spreadsheet. And I'm going to spare the details of that because it's not my story to share. But I took that idea of having a spreadsheet because at the time I felt like I was still super wishy-washy and I was very emotionally led in my dating rather than being like both pragmatic as well as emotional in my dating. So I put a spreadsheet together both on like one side, all the physical things that I was looking for, and then on the other side, all of the like characteristic traits. And then I also had like a note section. So like in this spreadsheet, this is so like Virgo moon of me, but like literally trying to like intellectualize emotions or try to structure and like organize emotions in like a spreadsheet. That is like the most Virgo moon thing ever, but I digress. I had everything from like height to smile and eyes, and like a rating system for that, to my characteristic traits of like respect and like emotional respect and like a respect for my spirituality, to things like bedside manners of like, those are the things of like, oh, do they like text you when like, get home safe, or are they saying like hello and good mornings, and like, how do they respect, other people? Do they get the door for you? I had a rating system for our conversations, if they were like intellectually stimulating or not. I had rating systems for humor and sense of humor, whether or not it was similar to mine or if they had really different humor than me. And in my notes column, I had things like their values, and their values, whether that was explicitly like asking them what their values were or just kind of seeing how they live their life, seeing like, the way they spend their time and like what it comes off as what they actually value. I was able to also put down notes of, if they did go to school, like what school did they go to? What did they study? What were their jobs? I even had a section for projected parental approval as well as projected friend approval. And I know the friend approval thing was going to come down to whether or not I liked them, but also like, did I feel like they were going to mesh with my people in my life? And then with my parents, I know that my mom can be a really like hard judge of person. And then my dad also has like his own standards, but it's simpler. That one was a little bit more challenging. But I share this all with you because when it came down to meeting my last partner, I didn't even need to put him on the spreadsheet. I was so certain about that relationship from the get-go. And I felt such a deep sense of connection. I felt seen in a way that I hadn't. And I think that was really important because to me, it was like I met somebody who those things didn't matter with. But also later on, when we had ended the relationship, I did go back and look at my rubrics and put him down and rated him as if I had dated him right from the beginning. And the thing was that he had scored really, really high on most of those things. He was that one who scored the highest out of everybody else that I had on that spreadsheet from whom I had dated and gone on a few dates with, which told me that I knew myself decently well, right? Like I knew myself enough to know what my standards were, what I genuinely needed and wanted in a relationship was actually accurate with how I felt. I don't do that anymore, I will say. Like I did go back and look at it this last time around in which I started dating and kind of was like, oh, well, I can see where some things don't matter to me anymore. Like things like politics, I was like, that doesn't really matter to me anymore. Like as long as we're not completely opposing each other and we can like come from an understanding perspective, it doesn't really matter as much as to me anymore. And then there were other things that did matter, things like father potential, right? Because at the time I was very adamant on like not wanting kids, but now in this state of my life, I'm like, actually, I'm open to having a love child, right? I'm open to creating a family and having a child with somebody who I genuinely love and like deeply feel like would be a good father figure. And so being able to kind of open up that can of worms, if you will, has also opened up my filter for dating of like, what I'm looking for and what I would want in a partner. So take that as you will. If it helps you to make that spreadsheet, then great. But hopefully you already have a sense of yourself in which you might not need one to date. But if you do, do it with a light heart. Don't take it like super seriously or anything. And also do not go out with people who obviously do not match those standards that you have for yourself. Well, friends, that is everything for this episode. I wanted to pull some cards, but I feel like there is no need to. I think I got through everything I need to get through. But if you are interested in getting a reading and getting some more clarity and guidance in your love life, then you can book a one-on-one session with me down in the description box below, or you can go to jencui.com. That's jencui.com/card-readings. And you'll be able to see right there my booking link. You'll be able to read through some testimonials as well. And in that reading, we'll be able to go and get to the root cause of energetically what's going on. If you feel blocked from love, if you're uncertain about the person that you're with, if you are just like in general, like in a daze, if there's something on your mind about relationships, we will dive deep into those things. And for whatever reason, if you're listening to this and you are already in a relationship and you've been together for at least a year, I also do relationship readings. And these are really fun because I get to see the energy that's underlying both you and your partner, as well as the relationship itself. So you can come into a much more harmony as well as alignment between you two. And this is a reading where both of you would be able to be on the call. It's a little bit longer than the typical one-on-one reading. So if you want more information on that, it's going to be in the same link on my website, and you'll be able to book through that website. So friends, until next time, listen to your soul whispers and stay well. Funny enough, the first card that I did pull off the top was the Ace of Cups. So this is all about new beginnings of relationships, and we are talking all about that.